That's fine.
And
I found this cool button on my phone that says I can raise my hand in the meeting.
What does that mean?
Zoom.
I have no idea. I'm not going to touch it.
We're streaming on YouTube, and now we will start recording.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to record on the computer. Hopefully we have space. Bam, cool. Stream is live. Live stream.
Live.
I can show you how to do this so you can start a YouTube channel for your bakery. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess Quinn and I are kind of doing that, but Instagram Live.
Yeah.
But then we have to upload it to YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you can just...
I was going to say you could just do this and it would upload it to YouTube.
Wow, you're smart. We should hang out.
I'm lazy. Back to why I don't make fancy, delicious cocktails.
Yeah.
Lazy. All right. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I made it.
Team Early as Fuck podcast. That's exactly right. Sarah Jo made these delicious Manhattans. So we're here in the studio. We've got Kristina at home. Kristina, hello.
Hello.
Where is home so everyone knows? Because we'll get to that eventually later as well, more in depth.
Hancock, Wisconsin, 30 miles south of you.
Nice. I'm not going to lie, from when you mentioned hunting property in that one podcast, I've done a lot of plat book snooping because I'm like, where is she talking about? So just so you realize, because I want to go grouse hunting up north, but every time I go home, I find wolf tracks everywhere, and I read more and more reports about bird dogs being attacked by wolves. And Django.
Wait, didn't you see a wolf the other day or no? You have to think about this?
I haven't seen one recently.
Oh, okay.
Not recently.
Okay, but you were just talking about wolves.
Yeah, because every time I go up back home, there's tracks everywhere.
Okay.
Or I just find dead deer that you're like, that was a wolf.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Django is a huge wuss, and obviously would like a large fox could probably kick his ass. But so terrified of wolves just because of him. So yeah, I'm staying in like the Point area for bird hunting.
Yeah, that sounds safe.
I think for the most part. But yeah, okay. Anyways, tangent. Sorry. We've got I'm excited for this podcast. It's been a long time in the making. Love dogs. I grew up with house dogs, and I think we had 8 beagles at one point. I don't know how my dad trained that many dogs by himself. By himself, because my uncle was just drunk all the time. So it was mostly my dad. And I'm not sure how he trained that many. So I just pick his brain all the time. But I'm also learning hound beagles are a lot easier to train than bird dogs. He's like, there's way more like to work on with a bird dog than a beagle that you just kind of like train to like run circles.
Yeah. Because
like the rabbit typically runs circles, so the dog follows them, and beagles love to chase shit and bark. So it's pretty straightforward. That's what
he spent his time doing.
Yeah, like a lot. So that we grew up chasing these following these beagles through the woods as they chase rabbits, and then my cousin, he raised hounds for raccoon and bear hunting, and so I've just always been around that. And for the longest time, it was kind of like just this pipe dream, like, hey, a bird dog would be pretty cool. And I graduated from college, and I had to put my childhood dog down, which was like super shitty. And yeah, we got a bird dog, so here I am. No clue what I'm doing, but it's been a blast, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've met cool people like Kristina. I've met Lane, and then, I knew you because I eat your food all the time.
And take like multiple photos a day of it.
Yeah, multiple photos a day of it. So
it's like beautifully overwhelming.
Yeah, right. I'm just like, that looks delicious.
Yes, and
take a picture of it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because so the food thing is its own thing, own beast, because so many people in health and fitness, shakes, all this weird stuff, they don't eat food, and that's like the whole reason I'm doing these local cooking workshops, because that's its own thing that I want to kind of tackle. But here we are talking about dogs, because I love talking about dogs and getting around people that know a hell of a lot more than me about dog training is super cool. And
especially in this area.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. We're like, there's like the super hardcore hunting crowd, which is cool. That's awesome. But I'm not super interested in pursuing that kind of line. And then like the stuff you're doing, there's no one doing that.
Well, except for the girl by Farm Shed.
The girl by Farm Shed.
We were talking earlier about how we saw how he saw a dog or a woman training a dog on a long lead, and that was really exciting to see in Stevens Point.
Yes, very much so.
Because that's the type of training that I do in town, and it's really amazing to see other people doing it as well.
So I want to hear, we're going to go both of you kind of backgrounds. So we'll do quick backgrounds, intros to who you both are, because I think we definitely glossed over that. And then we'll dive into kind of like childhood dogs, maybe high school, college, and then current, if that works.
Yeah.
So I don't know who wants to go first.
Kristina, you're up.
Go for it.
Kristina's up.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I am a veterinarian in central Wisconsin. I own a practice in Watoma, and we run our kennel here at home out of Hancock. We have duck-tolling retrievers and German Shorthairs. Childhood dogs, I grew up with Labradors and one English setter. My first of my own personal dogs I got when I was in 7th grade, and it was an Icelandic sheepdog. The theory behind that was that I liked Spitzes and northern breeds, and we wanted something that was horse friendly and could be around the horses in the barn with me. He spent 15 and a half, just shy of 16 years with me. He died in 2015 at this house, so he moved all through high school, college, vet school, multiple rentals, et cetera, and finally was laid to rest here. And he was a great dog, but the world's biggest asshole that you would ever possibly meet. Anybody that knew him, he raised our first toller in our college rental in Stevens Point, and we quickly learned that we could not train retrievers with a herding dog around because he drove them off of everything that they tried to retrieve. And he was the boss and would scare them. He used to take toys from our puppy out of his mouth and put them up on the coffee table so the puppy couldn't reach them, and then he would go lay down somewhere else.
That's awesome.
So it literally had no purpose other than to take the toy from him so that he couldn't have it. He was lovingly referred to as the fun police for many years.
Fun police. Okay, so I want to. Yeah. So I have on the video, so people, because do you know what a toller is?
No.
I didn't know either. Toller.
Yes.
Okay, so they are like the cutest, perfectly sized dogs ever. So I've got on the video version of this, I can also pull up.
You have like
web
12
searches
of these in your yard, right, Kristina? Wait, you have like...
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
I personally have 8 of them, but there's usually a few spare around for training or whatever else.
Sure.
They're so cool.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did because I want to dive into these dogs. So what do you know a ton about? I'm assuming you know a ton about this breed, like why they're this size, what they're bred for, because that'll obviously be something we talk about a lot in this podcast as well.
Yep. You want it now?
Yes, I do. I want it now. Everybody's got this picture of these adorable dogs.
They are known as the littlest of the retrievers, and they are supposed to be that way. Standing, about 17, 18 inches to 20 inches or so tall and 35-ish to 50 pounds. They're quite portable. They were kind of split originally between coastal water dogs that were the little bit bigger dogs and the more inland duck dogs that were a little bit smaller. The tolling portion means literally to lure, where they were made to get rafts of ducks to swim in closer. And certain species of ducks will toll better than others, and so their breed standards is described as a jaunty retrieve. They're very flashy and bouncy when they move, and so it was like short, fast retrieves along shore where rafts of ducks would swim in out of curiosity, and then you could jump shoot them, and then the dog would go out and retrieve. And so it is actually pretty effective. It works quite well. I've spent plenty of time walking along the trails that along the Wisconsin River when I was in college, and the mallards and the geese and things that are all over there will swim right over. But that's kind of what it came from. They have a lot of like farm collie retriever, Chessie. There's something called the Dutch decoy dog. There's a lot of variation behind them, but they are a newer breed. It came to the U.S. in the early 80s, and it was not recognized by the American Kennel Club until the early 2000s.
So badass.
You get a lot of variety still in them sometimes.
It blows my mind how, like, a lot of people will say all these things about dogs, like, you're forcing them to work, you're forcing them to do this. It's like, no, they were bred to do it. Like,
that's what they want.
These were characteristics that humans have been selecting for hundreds and thousands of years with some of these breeds. So it's so cool to see this and kind of like learn all this. So thank you, Kristina. I'm sure, Kristina, how many stories do you have of people like this? And this will get into what we're talking about later in the podcast too, but just people not understand, like they get a dog, they're like, oh, it's cute, not realizing like all of the selection that's gone into its breeding, or they get a dog just because they watched a movie or it was, you know, like.
Sounds like somebody I know.
Yeah.
Me.
My favorite story regarding that is a foster dog from last summer. It was a 10-month-old cattle dog who came into my clinic at 8 weeks old with an older couple. And after their first appointment, I looked at my technician and I said, could they please just give her to me now, because this is never going to work out. And they went through vaccines and spay and everything. And at 10 months, I finally got her relinquished to me when they came in and said they just couldn't take it anymore. But every single appointment was like, how do we make her stop biting our feet? How do we make her stop chasing us? And I was like, you don't get a cattle dog. And it was just endless, round and around and around of how do we do this? How do we do this? So finally they were like, you know, I don't think this is the dog for us. And I said, I think I agree with you. So they have just a mixed breed mutt of a great pet dog now who doesn't really have much drive to do anything. And the cattle dog lives in Southern Illinois with a girl that rides horses at pretty high-end barns or whatever. And dog goes to the barn with her every day and works the horses. And she's got a long history in cattle dogs, and happy dog and a happy owner. And
cool.
Yeah, so that's my favorite one, of just asking me once a month for 4 or 5 months how to make the cattle dog stop biting their heels. I basically just said you don't. So
yeah,
I love that.
But yeah, it happens all the time.
So
yeah, I'm sure. And like I definitely embarrassingly fall into that category of, I don't have a cattle dog, but I do have a Doberman Pinscher mix. And we got her from the Appleton Humane Society. And I saw her online and I was like, that's a cute dog. She looks like a fawn, and I love it. I love her. So we went and we like had the leash, and like I was like, is it cool if we just like pick her up on like the same day? Like I knew nothing. And so my husband and I went there, grabbed her, and we're like, love this dog. A lot of high energy. That's what we want. I don't know if that's what we wanted. We wanted an active dog. And so, a dog that we could take camping and hiking and biking and walking and running and all that good stuff. And so we took her home, and eventually it turned out to be more of a project than we anticipated. And then that's when I started learning about all of the dog details. And so unfortunately, I definitely fall into that category of someone that's just like, what a cute dog, let's take it home. And they sold it to us as like a Vizsla and Vizsla mix. And I guess that's what we were looking for, but I had no reason, there's no reason why I wanted it, just because she was cute. So I will admit that right off the bat.
That's, hey.
Yeah, sporting dogs will be a much different road than a working dog.
Exactly. So
nice.
Yeah, that's kind of where we started. We liked her and we got her.
Hey, but you're willing to educate yourself and adapt to your dog.
Exactly.
Because you and I have talked about that. It's so much of it is people training. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people get a dog and they put all these expectations on it without actually understanding maybe, or are willing to understand and adapt and learn about the dog. Whereas you were like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right, here we go. We're going to back up a couple steps, and we're going to learn, and I'm going to figure out what my dog, like so many of your posts are like, these are her natural tendencies, because you've been watching your dog, not just reacting to what she's doing. You're actually like listening to her, paying attention to how she's responding, and then you're creating how you interact with her, how you train her, how you train yourself in these situations.
Yeah, how I think
Yeah.
it's supposed to go.
Yeah, how you think it's supposed to go.
Which, yeah, it makes a good story. It makes a good experience. And, you know, sometimes you're just like, you got to go. But other times I'm like, nope, this is perfect. This is exactly where I need to be. I need to be learning this right now, challenging my brain, and just like really diving into something new. So, and Kristina, if I have anything that I say and you're like, that's not correct, please. This is a learning experience
no, not
too.
At all. You're fine.
So I think it's just exciting to kind of learn from each other. So.
Hell yeah. Well,
For sure.
I didn't know they were Flushing bird dogs.
Oh.
Before we got Django.
Right?
I was just like, everything I'd ever seen or read or watched was on pointing dogs. So it was like you train your dog to go out, find game, and it points until you get there, and then you flush it. And I somehow stumbled. I think Marissa sent me Springer Spaniels. I'm like, what the hell does this dog do? And I'm watching these videos. I'm like, wait, you mean we can just like haul ass through the woods and this dog just like runs in spastic circles and we just kick up stuff? That's what I need.
That is so cool.
That is what I need because I'm I'm just as spastic as he is.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's so interesting to learn about the different types of dog breeds and like what their purpose is.
Yeah.
And that's
For
something
sure.
that I just never, I just was like, we grew up with labs, and I was like, oh, cool, a nice lab. Or we also had a mean lab. And it's like, now I'm just kind of realizing so much more, and it's just the best.
Awesome. So what was the second? And then you had the herding dog, the
yeah, I had an
Fun
Icelandic sheepdog.
Iceland. That's the next one I'm going to search. Icelandic sheepdog. Bam. I think I spelled. Aw, they're cute, but they look extremely devious. Like, yeah, I'm going to steal that puppy's toy.
Yeah, I'm going to get that.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then what was the reason your family had him, or you had him?
Well, my family would vehemently deny having him. He was definitely my dog.
Okay,
My
gotcha.
dad was a diehard sporting dog person, and had a very tumultuous relationship with that dog for all the years I lived at home with him. But I got him because I wanted a husky, and my dad told me that a husky was going to run away if I tried to take it on horseback rides with me. And so we stuck with the Spitz, but started looking at herding dogs, and they're kind of a combination of the two. So you get that Spitz look with the prick ears and the coat and the curly tail, and but still have the herding dog in terms of obedience and ability to be around livestock and those sorts of things. So he was raised with Labradors and an English setter, and I also really loved Brittany's for years and years, but I knew that if I got myself a Brittany, that my dad would steal it and make it his hunting dog, and it would never be my dog. So this was a surefire way, if I didn't get a sporting breed, that it would be my dog. So he came to horse shows with me and traveled around in trail rides and wherever else. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just for everyone
he
listening,
made it around.
sporting dogs are hunting, and utility dogs are herding, and would huskies fall under utility?
Huskies are in the working group.
Working. So what's the difference?
So yeah, they split up working and herding.
Okay, so you need to break these down for me because I thought I knew them, but now I'm
Yeah, this is
second
good.
guessing
This is
everything
good.
in my life right now. So
It's like a pop quiz for you. The 7 groups. Can you list them?
I get so lost and confused trying to read about them, and I've never had anyone actually explain it to me. So that's what I'm
so
asking for right
sporting
now.
you have.
Sporting is hunting, right?
Are you writing this down? Sporting, yeah, is your retrievers, the pointing dogs, the setters, the spaniels, all those guys.
Okay.
And you have the hounds, which you should also know.
Hound? Wait, they're on their own group? I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow, I love
Anything from your
this.
little dachshund to a borzoi to a bloodhound, they're all in the hound group.
So Sarah and I got some beverages, and I ate all of the burgers. All of the burgers. Like, no one believed me I was going to eat all of them. Everyone's like, really? Like, yes. Like, you have a burger deal. What? No one else comes in and buys this many?
You had like 6.
But because we were talking about the wiener dog, and she's like, oh, she's harmless. She's like cute. I'm like, she's very cute, but she's a murderer. Like, that dog's prey drive and killer instinct scares me.
They are secretly terriers. Dachshunds should be terriers, not hounds.
That would make sense, because my terrier I had forever was the same way. Just like, I'm gonna murder you. Human, small animal. She didn't care.
Okay, so how many groups are there?
7.
Okay,
Right.
so we've got sporting, hound. What's the third?
Terrier.
Oh, terrier.
Herding. Working. I don't know, what number are we on now? 5. Toy, and then non-sporting.
Herding, working, toy, what does non-sporting mean?
It's everything else.
Oh, okay.
It's all the random things that don't fit anywhere. It's like, it could be like the poodle is actually non-sporting in the American Kennel Club. They're a gun dog in other organizations, but like the Dalmatian is in the non-sporting group.
Okay.
It's kind of like a lot of the random companion dogs that don't have an identity.
Sure.
Aww.
And what does the toy group
All the
mean?
little ones.
Oh, the little ones. Why toy?
Yeah. I don't know, because they're tiny. That's just the name of the group.
Oh, funny.
Fair. So sporting, hound, terrier,
Herding.
toy, non-sporting. What was the last one?
Working.
Working.
What does a 50% Doberman fall into?
Dobermans would be in the working group.
Yeah, she likes her jobs.
Have you ever genetic tested her? Did you DNA test her?
Yeah, we did. So
Is that what it came back most as, was Doberman?
50% Doberman, and then an equal mix of Rottweiler, Lab, Retriever, Siberian Husky, and other.
Wow.
So
Is she furry, or does she have a smooth coat like a Dobe?
she has a smooth coat, short hair.
Wow.
Doesn't
That's
shed.
lucky, because everything else has a lot of hair there.
I know, right? I mean, she sheds a little bit, but yeah.
Well, it's good to know the groups now.
Yeah, I like this.
So getting a genetic test, especially if you don't know what your dog is like super important for knowing these things.
Yeah, because then you're able to realize, like, I can have this dog or I can't have this dog.
Yeah. How does this
just
fit
like
in my
her
lifestyle?
story. Exactly. And then also, if you can have it, like, how do we fulfill the prey drive or the pack driver?
Yeah. We're going to get more into that too. I'm excited.
What do they want to do to keep their brains occupied, for
Exactly.
sure. From the veterinary perspective on the genetic testing as well, if you were to come back with a primary breed, it can lead you down like genetic sensitivities and genetic diseases, things that they might be more prone to. Perfect example of that in your dog being 50% Doberman is something called von Willebrand's, which is a bleeding disorder. So could be something, and not likely with her being mixed, but there is a genetic test for it. There's a blood test for it as well. But things that we've come across, like in the clinic, we had something that looked a bit like a Weimaraner mix, and went to spare, and their pre-med, their pain med injection is in the muscle, and just like regular protocol, you draw back to make sure you're not in a vessel when you're giving an intramuscular injection. And she didn't have blood on the flash in the needle, but just from the poke, so just from a shot in her leg, she was bleeding a lot out of her leg. And I was uncomfortable enough with it that we didn't proceed with the surgery. We did a von Willebrand's test on her, and she did actually have a blood clotting disorder. So I was really happy that we didn't cut her open at that time, because that definitely needs to be approached differently. But if you were to do genetic testing, it can lead you down the road of kind of understanding some of those potential risks on the veterinary side.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that you pointed that out.
Hell yeah. All right, so we've got the herding dog, and you had him
Yes, him.
throughout college. Where did it?
Yeah.
So why why vet school?
Why vet school? When I was 5, I wanted to be a pickpocket. And that probably would have been a more lofty career with a lot less debt than veterinary medicine. But after I got past wanting to be a pickpocket, I decided on vet school. I was a natural resources major at Stevens Point and loved it enough that I almost didn't bother to apply to vet school. I was going to stay in that field. I went down natural resources route. It's because if I didn't make it into vet school, I wanted to fall back on that versus just an animal science or something in the biology field. And I opted to apply, went to vet school with kind of the intention of working mostly in wildlife medicine, which I kind of stay involved with now, but then actually a little bit fell into this practice and took over ownership right away after graduation and solo practice. And it was a very, very steep learning curve, learning how to run a business and deal with all of that. But I actually really enjoy the business side of it now. So,
how old were you then?
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
How old were you when you took over?
26. Was when I graduated in May and I took over on July 1st.
Nice.
So what'd you do in those 2 months? You just party your ass off, or?
Well, I was going to take some time off, and I graduated on like a Saturday or something, and then I actually started working for the previous owner the following Friday. So I worked for him for a month and a half before I took over.
Nice.
So cool. So what made you want to kind of take over his business, like where you're at, and then what were kind of your goals and ideas, because you're like from the Upland athlete page to now canine athlete, and I'm still a little salty at you for taking down all of your blogs and notes, because I was reading.
I have them all.
I know you should just
Why
send them
did
to
you
me
take them down?
in large PDF. Whatever you're comfortable talking about. Well, I know, but whatever she's comfortable talking about, she can talk about. But
yeah, no, my partners backed out on me and they tried to sell me the brand, and I didn't want to pay for something that I had done all the work on, and so I pulled all my content and left them with nothing, so that I didn't have to pay for it.
There you go.
And so I have it all, and we'll repost it through my own page. I just haven't really gotten around to it, but.
Well, you only have like 40 dogs, so like what are you doing?
And a child.
What's holding you up?
That's all good. I do a lot of this stuff from my phone, actually laying next to my son in his bed at night. After I put him to bed, I snuggle with him until he falls asleep, and when he gets sleepy, then I sit there and get all my work done on my phone and then tiptoe out of his room and go to bed. So it's kind of my quiet time when I can actually accomplish things. So he's happy because I'm there and he's snoring, and then we're good to go. So
yeah.
The question about how I ended up in Wautoma/Hancock, I went to vet school in Madison, and my husband is a conservation warden with the DNR and was stationed in Milwaukee County at the time, and we knew we wanted to get back up to central Wisconsin. So we took his transfer my last year of vet school to Washera County. And then through a very roundabout way, small town, the fisheries biologist here was formerly, not anymore, married to the receptionist at the only vet clinic in the town. And they found out that the new warden coming to town's wife was graduating from vet school. So the former owner tracked down my husband's work phone number, called him through the DNR to see if he could find a way to get in touch with me, and called me up and invited me for a visit. That was in April, I believe, of the year that I graduated. And basically, he had been trying to sell his practice for a few years and didn't want to sell corporate. And it was a tiny little old school medicine practice. I walked in for the visit and he showed me his dingy old surgery room, and I was like, so where's the anesthesia machine? And he's like, there isn't one. They were just using like injectables with probably more poor protocols than we use in field wildlife medicine when you like knock down rhinos across, with a gun in Africa. Concoctions that should not be used for regular elective type surgeries in modern day veterinary medicine. So step one was, simple things like buying an anesthesia machine. And since then, we've pretty much changed everything. there about the whole practice. And I think the only secret there was not trying to do it all at once. We've definitely just chipped away. I worked in a clinic setup that looked like 1975, and literally for 3 years, the icicles outside the bathroom window in the back would come off the roof brown because the former owner's wife would secretly, because she thought no one knew, but chain smoke in the bathroom and puff her cigarette smoke out the window.
Girl.
And it took 3 entire years to wash the nicotine off the roof.
Oh,
and I literally stood in my yard and celebrated the first time I saw a clear icicle hanging off my roof.
Hey, everybody, come in here. Come look.
So I tell people about that building. I've lost my ability to react since I've taken over. We've replaced both furnaces, air conditioners, paid for gas leaks, a mouse infestation, had pipes freeze and burst. I pulled up one morning when it was 24 below in January and had vertical icicles shooting out of my foundation because as the pipes were leaking and spraying water, the water was freezing as it was still going up because it was so cold. Ceilings fall down. You name it, we've had it.
It's a great building, though.
So yeah, that's kind of taught me how to deal with a lot of things. So I don't feel like there's a whole lot that I can't handle in terms of that building. But that's how I ended up where I'm at. So slowly taking that all over and continuing to grow it and change it and have some more kind of ideas and expansion plans for the next few years. But we'll see what happens.
Cool. Nice work.
Right? So it sounds like you have a lot of free time. Your building's not falling apart or anything. Where, and you've only got like 20 dogs and a child.
10.
And
we're going to say 20.
And a husband that's I've been reading, I need to order the book Centurion, which I think is about Wisconsin warden. I forget from which year or decade. But I've read 2 other ones, and wardens have like the craziest hours ever, it seems like, from these books. So yeah, you've obviously, ton of free time, I say sarcastically. Where does Project Upland, or the Upland Athlete, like where does this kind of dog athlete
the missing link, I kind of forgot about that part.
Where does that come from?
So I had a very good friend in vet school who was very into holistic medicine. I myself had a dog 12 years ago. He's my oldest dog now, but as a puppy had a bad vaccine reaction, which got me more into kind of some holistic options and holistic nutrition. And then my Icelandic sheepdog, because I've always been interested in responsible breeding and kind of going down that route as well. He actually failed his hip x-rays as a 3-year-old and so never was a breeding dog, but with hip dysplasia could still walk around the 40-acre field next to our house at 15 years old, maintained on therapeutic exercise, acupuncture, and herbal anti-inflammatories. And so a couple key specific dogs got me pretty into integrative care and holistic medicine. So during my 3rd year in vet school, my friend and I and a couple other people started taking the online acupuncture training courses through the Chi Institute in Florida. So as students, we could take it, and then we had, various number of Florida trips where we had to go do on-site type things. So we'd go like over our spring breaks and whatnot to go to the Chi Institute to take our classes. So I got my acupuncture certification that way. And then through the Canine Rehab Institute, I took their sports med class and did their whole rehab training. And all of that kind of just stems from the our dog side of it, which is just an insane passion for competitive dogs and athletic dogs, dog sports, basically anything kind of elite performance with dogs. I've gone to the sled dog conference the 4 years ago, and then 2 years ago. I didn't go to the most recent one. It was in Spain, which was a little bit much for me, but I have not had a chance. It is kind of a bucket list thing. I do want to go be a sled race vet at some point in time. But yeah, you talk about free time, and I haven't had time to fly to Alaska or Minnesota or wherever in the middle of winter because I have too many responsibilities at home. But they are amazing athletes, so being able to kind of bring some of that stuff over and some of their physiology type stuff is pretty cool, the lectures and things at their conferences. So yeah, I just have like a weird obsession with athletic dogs.
That's
I love
not
it.
weird.
Not at all.
No.
I mean, all three of us
Which
are
is why
weird.
I told you your dachshund's fat, but you
Yeah,
know.
no, she's like, you have a chubby wiener dog. I'm like, fuck, you're right.
Actually, I got the word dog. I did tell you you had a chubby wiener.
Oh yeah. You
Uh-oh.
did. It's so true. And I'm like, damn it. Because no, for the longest time, and I love our vet to death, but like I'd be like, is she overweight? I think she's overweight. But I'm like feeding her what she, like it says to feed her. But I'm like, I think she's overweight. And then but the vet would be just like, you know, I'm like, okay, whatever. And she sees a picture of her, she's like, you have a chubby wiener. And I'm like, fair enough. All right. I need to talk with you more. And then I think that was after I listened to the podcast, because I totally nerded out when she was talking about strength and conditioning for dogs. Obviously, with what I do for a living, I'm like, wait, hold the phone. I remember pausing the podcast and like Googling what she was talking about. I'm like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. I'm like, I can, because right away I'm thinking, I'm like, dogs love doing shit.
Yeah.
They don't complain like humans do.
Yeah.
And all of the things I love about movement, I'm like, I just have to figure out what drives the dog. And this dog and I are going to have a great fucking time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's been like. And then she's obviously like, every message to me like, remember he's a puppy. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck. I gotta pump the brakes here. But yeah, it's just like the different ways to work volume, load, intensity, different planes of motion, the different ways we can work on balance, coordination, upper, lower, just like the way she was talking about it and her notes made so much sense to me as someone who does that for a living with humans. So I've geeked out on it ever since, and just that's why Wiener Dog is in fat camp, as we call it in the house. And she has that dog's. I give her credit for her tenacity and her sneakiness, because she'll go. She's like,
I'm still hungry.
Yeah, I like come home and like, it's weird. She normally greets me at the door, and I go back into my office, and she is inside my ruck pack, inside of it, and she found like some like
Old crackers.
half-eaten like snack I brought turkey hunting. I'm like, how did you even know that was there? Like the pack was up on the shelf. She pulled it down from one of the straps. So this isn't like open in the air.
No.
There's not. It was. She somehow smelled it, found it up on the shelf, figured out, I'm gonna pull this strap, pull it down on the floor, burrow into the bag, ripped everything else out. I think she even had to unzip a zipper. And she found this.
Those noses are crazy.
But yeah, so ever since finding the Upland Athlete, and then like her podcast, it's just like, holy shit, I need this for like all the extra stuff on dogs, because so many people are like, oh, your dog is gonna genetically have this, which sucks. There's nothing you can do about it. Or here are pain meds. Mm-hmm. Here are, and with humans, I hear that all the time. Like, oh, we have a bad back. People in my family have this, have that. It's like, no, we can work on all that.
Yep.
So it's so cool to hear that coming from the dog world, and have someone with her level of expertise that I can just stalk and read all of her articles, which she doesn't have online anymore.
Unless I take them all from you. All right, I will bring my computer home and I will repost them all.
So this was my morning ritual. It was coffee, flow, pet Django, read.
What's
and
flow? You
just
yoga?
like it's like more active version of yoga.
Okay.
Because yoga and stretching, I'm like
Coffee, flow, dog.
Coffee, flow, dog. That's my morning. And flow is like just more active, because the whole like woo woo part of yoga, I'm like, that's cool, but you're in a quiet room. Go do that kind of mindfulness with like people screaming at you, or like a busy workspace.
Yeah.
That's anyways.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
I go to read, and there's nothing there. And then I have to go to the website, and that's when I realized, I'm like, who the fuck are these other guys that I've never even seen post anything?
Not connected.
Yeah, so I never actually did anything with the website. The website went nowhere.
And then
it was all on the Facebook page.
Yeah, which she had done all of the articles for. So then I messaged Lane. I'm like, Lane, what the fuck? Where are all the articles? And then, so anyways. Sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
That was my tangent. I'm not, as you can tell, I'm still not over it.
Oh, very obvious.
All good. There was I relaunched it on my own with my whopping 82 Facebook followers, which I'm pretty sure are all friends and family on there now. So I unfortunately had to walk on about 4,000 followers on that page, and it was that was the hardest part. And we were trying to kind of merge it and get it to transfer over better, but the person that was helping me is notoriously busy and can never seem to get around to it.
Girl,
so I kind of just gave up and was like, well, we need to move on.
You can get those followers back, no problem.
Yeah, maybe someday, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, so it's kind of where we're at with that.
This podcast will help. We'll promote the crap out of
Hopefully.
it.
I think so.
Well, thanks. I'm excited that it's not just specifically upland hunting dogs now, though, because I also compete in agility in a lot of different venues and stuff with my dogs, and I have friends in kind of various dog sports. So I do want to kind of dive into all the various dog sports and not just be focused on upland stuff. And some of the stuff with Upland Athlete, some of the direction they were going was kind of down the field trial route too, which I have friends in field trials, and it is what it is. It's fine, but the level of care of some of the dogs is kind of not what I want to talk a lot about all the time. So I like seeing those dogs that are pet dogs as well as athletes, not just athletes. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a nice blend of being able to do that. Yep. That's not to say anything bad about field trial folks, but it's just not my thing. So.
I'll say it. I have no experience. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Is there a good collection of dog people in Watoma, or is it more outside?
You mean dog people? What do you mean by dog people? Like dog owners, or dog people like you and I dog people?
You and I dog people.
All my friends that have become my friends over the past 6 years of living here. One of my friends has started a Frisbee league in Watoma, so kind of drawing in people with dogs that way, and sort of meeting more people and having them kind of expand their knowledge of dogs and what they can do with it. But there are some you have to kind of weed through. But I was telling somebody, I don't know if it was you or not when we met at the practice the other day, but I was like, it's hard to say without sounding like a total elitist, but when you work with dogs all the time and then you have athletic dogs or performance dogs, the term pet dog just becomes a total broad spectrum term that covers everything else, where it's not trained, it's not fit, it's very well loved, but it's not a dog savvy person. They just have a flexi lead and a flat buckle collar, and there's no control happening there, and the only time they ever leave the yard is to go to the vet once a year, so they're shaking and hiding in the corner because they're not socialized and they never went to puppy class. And it's just a pet dog thing. I've had a lot of dog sport.
Amen.
What?
Just like all these bullet points of just your classic pet dog.
I've had a lot of dog sport friends from Point or from various locations that will come to the clinic to see me for specific things, whether it just be regular care because we'll titer for vaccines and I'm not going to lecture them about it, and we'll kind of do what they want to do protocol wise, because I'm not going to, everybody has their own opinions on that, but I'm super happy to do vaccination titers and limited protocols and whatnot to kind of meet their needs. And so some people will come see me specifically for that. But it's funny when I have dog sport people that come in and let's say their appointment is sandwiched between two pet dog clients, and they come in and they're like, how do you do it? How do you see those obese dogs that many times a day? And I was like, yeah, I kind of have a really bad reputation about fat pets. So I think I told you that when I first took over a small town, and the former owner came into the practice one day and he was all serious. And he's like, we need to talk. I'm like, okay. And he's like, this is a small town and people need to get to know you and they need to like you. And I was at church on Sunday, and, Fran or whatever the hell her name was came up to me and said, that new vet that's there, she told me my cat is fat. And I looked at her and I said, her cat was fat. What do you want me to say? So I've literally argued with people. I've had them come in and be like, I know they're fat and I don't want to hear about it. And I said, well, I'm here to advocate for your dog. And if you don't want to hear about it, there's the door. But if you stay, you're going to hear about it and we're going to talk about it. So yeah, I've had people that want to euthanize because their 5-year-old Labrador is morbidly obese and can't walk up the stairs. And I'm like, this is fixable. Like, so yeah, there's very frustrating cases of pet dogs. And I'm sure you see that on the training side as well.
That's awesome. Can I come to your vet?
Sure. You're welcome anytime.
I'm coming. Like, I need to set up our first initial, because as we were driving back, I'd already decided, but after being there,
oh my God, I got my sign fixed since you took that picture.
All right, I gotta come back because I want to get
come back and take a new picture.
Whatever the eval or the initial assessment is, I want to get Django for sure, but probably the wiener dog in there as well. Yeah. She hates vets.
We got to do some video of the wiener on the fitness equipment.
Yes. Okay, we're doing it.
What do you think about dogs on treadmills?
I love it, but a big dog like yours, in order for them to trot on a treadmill, the treadmill should be 2 times the length of the dog's body.
Sure.
So I have a big dog, and I have a people treadmill, not a gigantic, long, big dog treadmill. So for him, I make it harder, since he can only walk, with incline and weights. So there's definitely a way to do it. He will get done and be tired, and I can work him out and wear him out and have that mental focus of repetitive type motion and that sort of a thing. But I will not let him trot on it. But for example, the wiener dog, she could trot on a human treadmill because it's plenty big enough. So
sure.
I actually have a friend in vet school who is a diehard Doberman person, and she had her Dobes trained to treadmill, and they would treadmill for an hour 4 times a week or something. And they obviously it's dangerous to tie them. You have to be there, but they were so well trained. She could do it without standing right next to them. They would just get on and do their workout and not jump off, not be tied, anything.
That's awesome.
And she's got this amazing picture. It's buried somewhere in her Facebook, but she had a cat tree between her 2 treadmills. And there's Dobermans super fit, pumping some treadmill time, working out. And there's just these 2 lazy cats laying on the cat tree between them. Hey, you're working out pretty hard there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just, the picture cracks me up all the time. But yeah, it's great.
That's cool. Well, that's good to know.
Why did you ask?
Just because I guess the follow on Instagram is where I follow a lot of people and learn a lot just about dog psychology and dog behavior. And that's kind of one of the things that is very common in this style of training. And so I was like, is this lame, or is it I want to get my dog outside. Michael can take it for her for bike rides, or, eventually I can figure that out too. Or we can go to the park, or we can go for hikes. So I'm more of a natural, we can figure this out naturally. Sure. But at the same time, we have a life, and, we can't take her to the park or we can't give her a bike ride every single day. So if there's a treadmill in the basement, is that something we can do? However, we need to be there. So it's still our time. So we might as well just be outside doing something healthy for both of us.
Yeah. I do oftentimes feel odd if I have my dog on the treadmill and I'm standing there, but it goes both ways, because I'll run on the treadmill on bad weather days, and then he lays down next to the treadmill right next to me. So trying to share the love there, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess I could do some laundry. Anyway,
I don't even know if I know how to walk on a treadmill. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, then the whole training process.
It's been a long time
to get a dog on the treadmill is definitely it's a process.
I heard. I can only imagine. I'm picturing Django. He's way too spastic. He can't walk. He can't run a straight line outside.
Remember, he's a puppy.
Yeah. Well, I just don't think he'll ever not be spastic. But there was I think it was on the Upland podcast, but the guy, he talked about, it was the Agnew, because it was the same last name as the trainer you went to, but I don't know if you are familiar, Kristina, with Todd. I want to say his first name is Todd Agnew, but he does
Brian.
Yours is Brian.
Oh, sorry.
Mine's Todd. Yeah, that's why I was. But he does specifically Springers and Cocker Spaniels, and he has that's all he does full time. He just trains these dogs, and he'll have 6 or 7 Springers and Cockers at heel without leashes while he's out in the field. One out front hunting, flushing, and he can call that one back, send another one out. He can shoot a bird at the shot. The one out hunting will sit, and he can send another one out to go fetch up the bird that was shot. And he does this all just verbal commands. There's no leashes or anything or e-collars. And but he was talking about in this podcast how he's like, so many people are like, well, they feel judged by him, or like they panic and they apologize. And he's like, no, I wouldn't expect your dogs to be like this. Like, you have a life.
Yeah.
You have all of these other things going for you. He's like, but what I would expect is you to acknowledge that, be honest, and then be able to prioritize what it is you want from the dog, and then prioritize that in the training, and then don't be a dick to your dog when it's not doing something else. And it's like, well, you didn't prioritize that.
Yeah.
So you can't expect your dog to be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, okay. We haven't ever done that, but I'll get it.
I'll just get it.
So when I was listening to that podcast, I'm like, that makes so much, like, it's obvious, but at the same time, you don't think about it because you want your dog. So many of us are watching all these things or seeing or reading, and we want our dog to be able to do that. But it's like, well, no, your dog just like exists. It's in the present. And so not taking all that into account is super just not fair to your dog. So
no, it isn't.
Yeah, well, I think about that.
You hit something on.
What was that?
Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say you hit something on the head there when you're talking about prioritizing it. I had a couple months ago, I'd read a book on mindfulness, and one of the things that had stuck with me when people talk about like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that or I don't have time, and like, it's basically never that you don't have time. You just have to accept the fact that it's not that you don't have time. It's just not a priority right now. So it's not that the dog is not capable or that you're not capable as a team. It's just admit it and accept it that it's not your priority and that's not your goals right now. And then I think you lose a lot of the guilt associated with like, oh, it's, I don't have time. And you just need to accept the fact that like, no, you're just doing other things. So I try to kind of like remind some of my stray children, I should say. I have a few spare children that are not my own, but the kids that hang around the clinic in the kennel and whatnot, and try to remind them of that when it's like, I can't do this or I can't do that. And I was like, it's not that you don't have time. It's just not a priority. So you have to sit down and figure out what your actual priorities are and what's most important. That's the same with the dog. Like, I mean, so many dogs never reach their potential training wise or competition wise, but then you have to ask yourself, like, does that matter? They were a great, family pet, or they were a great companion, or they had a lot of other things going for them, or they were, flexible and could go to the kids' baseball game and then go hunting on the weekends. And yeah, maybe their training wasn't push button or super in control, but, there's just kind of, I don't know, a lot of different niches that they can fill for sure.
Love it. Sarah, you mentioned earlier prey drive, pack drive. And then Kristina can jump in too at some point, but what do you mean by that for dogs? Because I don't think a lot of people take that into account. They're just like, well, this is what I want my dog to do. Not taking into account like your dog doesn't give a fuck about like what people expect, what some people are comfortable with. Like, it blows my mind. It always blows my mind because growing up with dogs, I'm super comfortable around dogs. Doesn't matter. It could be the most aggressive dog in the world. And
you're like, I got you.
I got you. We'll figure this out. We'll figure this out. I'm not afraid of you. And I had some like scary shit happen because I had a neighbor with a dog that would like pull me off my bike. Like, I would bike by and it would just run out, pull me off my bike. And I'd be like, we could still be friends. Whereas like kids see, I've encountered people who see Django and their parents like hide their children. Like, is he safe? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, look at him. He's like just spastically wiggling. Like, yeah, he's fine.
Well, that's good though, because I think this is going off topic, but kids, I mean, it's good for kids to know that not every dog is super friendly.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a huge thing. I mean, like, even if we're at the park and people like run up to Fran, I'm like, whoa. Nope, we're not interested in this. But yeah, so the question of can I pet your dog is extremely important.
That is a big one.
But
I suck at that one.
At the same time, like when you have a dog that's so happy-go-lucky, you don't think twice about it. But when you have a dog that's not, you're just like, okay, every scenario that could go wrong, let's be prepared. Yep. And that's a hard mindset to have. But so your question was pack drive and break drive.
Yeah.
So I guess I recently discovered just kind of like the long lead leash training, and it's so cool to give your dog the freedom of giving them the length of the leash, and then understanding what decision are they going to make, and are they going to choose to follow you, or are they going to choose to look at the rabbit over in the corner. And so kind of working that, I have a trainer out in California that helps us via FaceTime. And that's kind of where I got connected with Instagram, and then that's why I went out to a dog training workshop in California. Long story short, she introduced me to the long lead, and she's like, try a long lead. And I was like, okay. First, Lane Jewel was like, said the word lead, and I was like, what's a lead? I'm like, okay, yeah, got it. So very quickly I learned that that's the term. And so she's like, yeah, try a Fran on a long lead. And I was like, why would that ever work? And it is the most magical tool ever. So the more I got comfortable with it, the more I understood that the dog is basically telling you that they're going to follow you. They're making the choice that you're more important than what else is out there. And so giving them that opportunity to kind of make those decisions is extremely important. And then so that's pack drive. So it's kind of hard to explain without like a video.
Well, I can bring it up.
Yeah, totally. Basically,
Brian
you're just
Agnew, right?
Let's just do like maybe like long lead dog video. So you have about a 15-foot line, and you're giving it to them to see what they're going to do with it.
I don't know when I graduated from high school. That's what it's asking me. So we can actually play this for people too, so they can hear the audio.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh wait, now they can hear the audio.
On loose leads, no problems at all. Walking in among.
I'm bored already. This guy needs. Anyways, if you want to watch this video, you can watch it.
Sounds like David Attenborough of dog training.
Yeah, you can watch that video. Otherwise, and you can also tell their prey drive. Like if they're at the end of the lead and they're not interested in you, that's a whole nother topic, but there's no relevance. You're not important to them.
That's the leader
So
dog.
it's easy to figure out, like, are you even relevant to your dog? Are you even important? Unfortunately, most of the time, if it's just like a pet, no. If if the dog's walking in front of you and they're on their walk and not yours, that's a whole nother story. I mean, you're just not relevant. Mm-hmm. So the long lead can kind of answer a lot of those questions. And it's really interesting to, I'll start doing this with a few other dogs, just, friends and family. I'm like, hey, can I have your dog? Uh-huh. I got to see what this dog does.
I want to see you. I want to see it. Like, I'm going to have to go hide because if I'm in the area, Django's not going to do a damn thing. Like, but I want to see what would happen with Django, because he's either off leash or at heel.
Yeah.
Off leash, like he has, and like with Rissa, he just doesn't listen worth a damn.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what he would do with something like that, because for me, like how you walk Fran, I don't live in town. Django walks from the podcast studio to your bakery. Mm-hmm. That's literally probably his furthest leash walk.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, well, why the fuck would I work on that?
Yeah.
Like, we have all this other stuff to work on for hunting, and he's great off leash. And for me, I'm like, what you're doing, it overwhelms me, because from a puppy standpoint, I've had him from 7 weeks old, and you're basically doing long lead, but it's all mental. Mm-hmm. Like, you get his attention, and then you just get him super excited to come by you and stay within range. Mm-hmm. and you ignore him when he breaks that range. So it just instills from him from 7 weeks on, like, hey, if I'm this close to him, we have a great time.
Yeah.
So it's like an invisible leash between him and I.
Exactly. He's
So
like, things are way more fun when I'm closer to
yeah.
you.
So it's literally like everyone's like, aren't you worried he's gonna run away? I'm like, no.
Yeah. No.
Like, deer could run out in front. I'm gonna get his attention, just yell his name, and walk the other way, and he's gonna go maybe 10 yards down the deer trail and come back.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. It could be birds. Oh, birds sometimes, but even then, it's like
birds are tough.
Yeah, birds are tough, but that's just because that's what we work with primarily. But and that's the thing where it's like, go go go. I obviously as a bird dog, like you want him to pursue those things, but yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the long lead just kind of teaches your dog to follow you, which is the most important part. And that covers like mental and physical exercise at the same time. So they are literally thinking about your next move every single moment, and they're following you, which is a mental exercise. So it's tiring them out, and then they're also walking, so that's physical. So it's just kind of the coolest thing to do. And then to start them on that, you really only want to do like 15-20 minute increments at a time.
Oh,
especially
yeah, that's
if it's just like new. I mean, that's going to be like
think about like the hardest Sudoku puzzle. Now go do that for like 10 minutes and see how you feel. That's what you're doing. That's what you're telling your dog to do.
And then you're like, rest for an hour and then let's try this again.
Yeah.
But so it's definitely has been the answer to our life, which is awesome.
Kristina, what are your thoughts on all this? As obviously the two of us in this room have like your pinky nail of experience.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, not at all. No, I totally agree. We use long lines a lot for just kind of connection, basic obedience type stuff, but puppy drags and whatnot, working on recalls. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about like a dog leaving a scent and catching up with you because you're walking away. I mean, I can picture it happening in my head. Absolutely. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And everything you're saying about like mental exercise being much more exhausting for a dog than physical exercise. Even when we take dogs, I mean, I have a dog in right now for shoulder rehab, and he's learning to do like fit pause equipment and strength training things, and he gets treat rewards for it and whatnot, but it's so much harder for him to focus on doing that and controlling his body in smaller strength training type situations and experiencing these new things. The dog could run from here to California and not be tired, but you do that for 10 minutes and his tongue's hanging down to the floor and he's like panting and his eyes are all bugged out and he's tired and he needs to go take a crate break for a minute. And it's absolutely, if you can exhaust them mentally, you're going to get a lot farther than just sheer physical exhaustion. So
let's just talk about crates for a second. Okay, well, this is the first night we had Fran. Our friends were like, "Hey, we have a kennel," and I was like, "Okay." And they're like, "You can have it," and I was like, "Okay." And they came over and they're like, "Where is Fran gonna?" It was like the first night we had her. Like, where's Fran gonna sleep? I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I would really recommend just putting her in the kennel. And first night at our house, she went in the kennel, no problem. And I'm like, I mean, that probably was just like her being like, okay, this is what we're doing. And I don't know. I mean, she was like 1.5, so I don't know if she was ever like crate trained. I don't really know her history and I kind of doubt it, but I just wonder if it was just like, first night you're here, this is what you're doing. This is how it's always going to be. And every single night she has never slept. Well, she had a unfortunate cut on her leg, so she had a cone, and I was like, okay, can you even like turn around in your crate? You can sleep with me. But that was like 3 nights, and I was like, never again. You're going back in your crate. So anyway, they're super important, and a lot of people, again, it's just like, you work your dog, or your dog is working, like, how unfortunate, or your dog is in a crate, like, how sad. And it's like, no, they love that.
I was gonna say, do you know how canines live in the wild? In dens. It's a lot like a crate.
Yeah.
Wiener dog doesn't have a official crate, but she just burrows wherever she is, that she's.
I was gonna say, well, she does. It's under the covers of your bed.
Yeah,
She's probably gonna burrow.
Yeah, she just burrows.
A natural crate.
Yeah, Django, he needs his crate. He needs his crate. That's his downtime. He
Totally.
goes in there, just literally like passes out.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and he's just staring. It's
Yeah.
kind of creepy. He's weird.
Well, and I guess this all coincides, like crate work and place work.
I love what you do with place work.
Kristina, do you do a lot of place work, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's great. The best example I have of that is one of my crazy little agility dog is trained to, when we were bored, we used to see at what distance I could get her to go to her kennel to. And because she knows a table command, like my dogs when they're young, I'll teach them table so that they get on the scale at the clinic as well, because so many patients come in and they're just terrified of just stepping on the scale and it's an inch off the ground. Like, I don't understand why it's so scary, but it just is. And when we renovated the whole clinic, like gutted the whole front, changed everything all around, I was messing around with her one day and she'll do anything for food, like psychotically for food. And I had a treat in my pocket and I told her to go table. And she blew through the door to the front of the clinic and skidded across the floor and slammed it down in the spatial, like, whatever geographic coordinates that the scale used to be located. And so the whole room was different, and she downed in the middle of the room, but was the exact location of where the scale used to be. Yep. There used to be a wall there, like the whole thing. And she's just downing, staring at me like, did I do it? And I was like, no, the scale is 6 feet to your left.
She's like, give me my treat.
So yeah, she knew her place where she was supposed to go.
Yeah.
But it's super helpful. We have a lot of dogs, and I have one very old dog that does not sleep in a crate. And he actually doesn't sleep in my bed either. He used to sleep on the floor next to the bed, but now he likes to sleep downstairs on the couch. And everybody else is crated at night, and they get better sleep. We get better sleep.
Yep.
We have snuggle time before bed, but then there they go. So.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you need to actually explain place, because most people listening are gonna have no idea what you're talking about.
Google it. No, place
Oh, that's
work.
right. We can do that.
You can buy like a place cot, which most people do. It can also be a towel. It can be a blanket. It can be a Starburst wrapper. Like, you can make it as small as you want. But it's basically a place for a dog to go to feel comfortable and calm. You want to keep them.
I don't know what I did.
It's also just another form of mental exercise. So you put them on place, and obviously, or not obviously, you need to train them what place means. And then once they understand that this is a safe and comfortable space, you can hopefully get them in a down position where they can be calm and hang out and chill out until place just becomes like a really comfortable space for them. So they don't come off unless if you ask them to come off, so they stay on there. And it's a job, so you're basically giving them a job. You're telling them place, and they're hanging out, and they can be frustrated or nervous or excited or calm or happy. It totally depends on the dog, but keeping them there is giving them a job, and it's mentally exhausting them because they're like, I have to stay here, I have to stay here, I have to stay here. And you have to just make sure that they do stay there. And eventually they'll understand what that means, and they'll love it.
Yeah. I love the videos of Fran and the little broom bot. It's like going around, she's like, fuck that thing.
Well, yeah, it totally does a lot of impulse control too. So she can stay on place while I play with her ball.
Yeah.
And she can't get it because she has to stay there. So that goes for if she's on place in the park and she can't get the rabbit or the squirrel, or, or if people come over. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. Like, you stay on place, and these people that are entering the door, those are my friends. They are not yours. You can meet them later, but you will stay where you are instead of barging at the door. So, I mean, place work is just the answer to a lot of difficulties.
Like it. Kristina, so for hunting dogs, and then we can definitely jump into agility dogs as well. Do you use, are they called, I don't think they might be called place boards, but the table platforms where
the what? like some pointing dog people will whoa break dogs. They'll call it a whoa board.
Oh, nice.
But you're just talking about like a training table?
Training table, yeah, where it kind of goes up. There's a line for their lead, and they can
Yep.
kind of. Do you use those a lot?
Yeah, we have one in our kennel building. I don't use them at all because I have absolutely no ability to focus and move slowly enough to take a dog through that. However, my husband does it a bunch with the tollers for conditioning and like trained retrieve type work. And it teaches a lot of body awareness. Like we'll put puppies up there, not attached to the cable line at all, but teaching them to move on an elevated surface, teaching them to know where their body is. The best way, like proprioception, which I don't know if that's something that you guys do with your people athletes, but
All the time.
the best way for them to learn
All
where
the
their
time.
feet are is to have them step off the table with one foot and have to catch themselves. So they learn that they need to be aware of what's around them. And just like basic training, even for like agility equipment, taking puppies through an agility course gives them confidence, gives them proprioceptive awareness, gives them all kinds of things that we've seen it. Like my now retired agility dog, retired hunting dog, he never questioned swimming out over a log or walking out on something to retrieve a bird or do something. He had tons of confidence in his body and strength to do it. So it kind of crosses over to a lot of different things. But yeah, using that training table, just even with the little guys, teaching them that they can. So one thing that we noticed, like if you teach a hold, where they have to actually hold the object, a lot of dogs will freeze when that happens. So after they learn hold, they have to learn that they can actually physically move while holding. So that's like step 2. So that table gives them, they're comfortable. They know that they always move on the table. And so now they learn to hold and they learn to move. And now we ask them to put 1 and 2 together and do them at the same time. So
Cool.
you can then transfer that over to groundwork. So yeah, I like it.
I love it. I've from watching the friend videos, I've definitely been made that more of a priority, and even Django's training of like the place work. So in the car, he knows he has to stay in the back seat. He can't because he loves being like on the console. He loves being there and just like waiting to see what's happening. But he knows he has to chill in the back seat now to get his command to come out of the car. Even at the house, well, he doesn't do it for Rissa at all, but for me at least, to go outside, he has to sit and stay. I'll walk outside, I'll come back in, I'll just throw shit, just to test him, and then he gets the command to come outside.
Oh, such a waste of time.
Yeah.
But so important.
It's fun because it's like you said, the mental reps, because he's like learning discipline, because that's definitely what he's got it in some area. Like at the gym, he definitely has it. Like he knows where he needs to be sitting when it's getting crazy.
That's awesome.
Because he has no survival instinct, and he has fallen asleep next to people doing power cleans. Like 9 weeks old. So he at the gym. He was in the gym 7 weeks old. You could power clean, drop a loaded barbell next to him, and he will sleep through it the entire time. He is like, which I think helped with gun training.
Yeah.
Like first time he heard a gun, he's like, okay.
I already heard that.
Yeah, like just loud noises do not faze him.
Yeah.
And he's at home in chaos, so now it's like getting him to show discipline in the calm moments.
Yeah.
Because he has it during the crazy moments.
Yep.
Because that's like what he's been around his entire life. But yeah, just watching your place videos, I'm like, I can do a better job of this in like the little transition periods, because once again, that's just more reps that bleed over into the rest of his training.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems so like little, but it's all the little things that like lead up to the big problems.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, Fran would just like follow me around the house, and Michael, and eventually you're just like, how can we stop this? Like this is like stressing me out, and it shouldn't, because you're like, oh, we love you, you're a dog. But you're like, okay, you need to go over there. And once we figured that out, once we really hashed that out, it was just like, this is life-changing. Like I would go into the kitchen and like open the fridge so quietly so she wouldn't hear it. No, because then I'd be like, just don't run in here so chaotically.
Yeah.
Please don't. And now like you just open the fridge, no problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I living my life like this? I can't do this for you anymore. You're gonna live in my world, and you're gonna figure it out. and we're gonna figure it out together.
Well, and she'll be happier for it because she's not constantly like
totally.
panicking and running
Exactly.
everywhere.
She would pace the house, look out the windows, react. She's just finding something to react to.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of stopped that,
I like it.
but not perfectly.
Hey, they're dogs. We're people. We all fuck up. But we're working on it.
Yeah.
So, okay, Kristina, do you have anything to add before I keep diving into more things?
No, I'm good.
All right, fair enough. So we've all nerded out on a lot of things when it comes to dog training. People are
I
gonna
can
be like,
nerd out for like 4 more
wow,
hours.
right? I could just us keep talking like we are. So Kristina, you obviously work with a lot of people, a lot of pets. What are kind of maybe some of the more common, I mean, you touched on it earlier with the older couple getting the herding dog. What some common kind of like errors people make in maybe selecting a dog, or some things people just aren't aware of when they have their dog, I guess, if that makes sense, that question.
I think probably a big change for a lot of people is like single dog households. So if a dog lives out their whole life at age, 12, 14, 15, whatever, and then they're gone and they decide to add a new dog and they're starting the puppy thing over again, especially if you have like middle-aged to older people, or the last time the dog was a puppy, they had 5 young kids or 3 young kids at home that kept the dog played with and quiet and exercised, and the dog was out with the kids constantly, and now all of a sudden the kids are gone and you started puppyhood all over again. And the vast majority of people that are single dog households starting over with a puppy are just dumbfounded at all the work that goes into a puppy and not having remembered any of those things. I hear everything from like, we don't give it any water after 5 p.m. because then it will have to pee and we don't want to take it outside. I've had 8-week-old puppies come in wearing diapers because it just keeps peeing in the house. And I'm like, I try to tell people, set your timer on your phone every 20 minutes. You go outside, like until the dog is sleeping every 20 minutes, you go outside. And just like culture shock type things, like they're just totally not expecting it. Or of course, getting absolutely the wrong breed for them. And we will not get into the doodle craze, but doodles obviously are popular pet dogs. And when I have like a 70-year-old person come to me with a golden doodle puppy that is going to end up being 95 pounds of matted fur and crazy, it's just kind of a bad mix. So definitely doing your research. People that get huskies because they're pretty and they have no idea that they're bossy and they like to be in control and they run away and they have containment issues and can get out of anything, and they're just shocked when this happens. And just kind of many levels of misfits. So
we don't go to the dog park a lot anymore, just because Django.
That's a good idea.
That's
right?
a good thing.
Django. Well, I went there in the beginning to socialize him to dogs, but he gets super bored when he's there because I think he realizes like, oh, this is it. This is like just a big prison. But the amount of people that have huskies there that have come up to us and they'll want to do stuff with Django, like they'll want to take part in like what we're doing, and then I have to lead that dog back to their owner because I'm like, dog will just show up. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Django will run this dog until it's dead, and then randomly some guy will come up over the hill. Hey, do you have my dog? Can you get my dog? And I'm like, yeah, we'll get your dog. And I just go over there and like clip it and walk it back. Or I just call Django over and their dog will follow Django. It's like, dude, this is not the place to be.
Too much. That's a whole nother podcast.
I should get payments for those every time.
Dog parks, yeah.
That'll be $10. That'll be $10 for getting your dog back to you. But
yeah,
that's all of that is like just so true though, because at the gym, people are like, "Oh, Django, I want a dog," and before I'd be like, hell yeah, dogs are awesome. I've always had dogs. Now I'm like, you should be more selective.
But make sure you know.
I'll start asking questions like, what are you puppy or adopting? And I definitely want to talk about the adopt don't shop movement, and kind of how misplaced that is or misguided it is. But yeah, it's like I'm asking questions like, how much time do you have? What do you do for work? How often do you get outside now?
Yep.
What's your exercise level at?
Yep.
Do you have 10 to 20 minutes a day to just do dog stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but it can also like teach you a lot of things too. Like, especially in the winter, I would never be hiking Buchholz Park, my parents' backyard, in the winter, negative 20 degrees, but we go every day.
Yep.
And it's like, you have to. You have no choice. If you care about your dog, you have no choice. Like, that's what we're doing. And it's huge. It's great for them. It's good for you. Yeah, this just kind of like woke me up a little bit.
Right.
Like, I dig winter.
So Kristina, if you could, like, do we want to number it at 3 or 5? Like, however many questions you would give someone who wants to be, because this whole podcast has primarily been for people in the health and fitness space, maybe are active or the weekend warrior. What are like 5 questions you would tell that person to ask themselves to be able to answer honestly to help guide them into what kind of dog they should be looking at?
Well, probably the general topics they need to cover would be like exercise, trainability, and grooming. Because if you don't want to deal with hair brushing or, burrs or anything under the sun, then obviously there's plenty of smoother coated varieties. There are plenty of things that don't require a ton of exercise or stimulation if you just want something fluffy to snuggle with you. And then in terms of like from the fitness side of it, the number of people that will ask me about one of my 2 breeds of dogs as being a jogging companion, and kind of diving in a little bit to like adoption versus purchasing a puppy from a responsible breeder, and not jogging with dogs at a young age. So I tell people constantly, if you tell me I'm going to take up running and I want a jogging companion, do not go out and get a puppy, because you're looking at least 18 months before you should be using that dog as an actual like leashed to you, repetitive type road work jogging companion without potentially causing injury to their joints later in life. And so those are great situations for example, a dog like Fran, built like Fran, looking a bit like a Vizsla, but having Doberman type legs and heart and lungs and chest and whatnot, would be a fantastic jogging companion. And adopted at 1.5 years old, you could go home and go for a run that day and not have a problem. But getting a dog that's going to require something like that and then expecting it to be a couch pet would be kind of a bad plan. So, really kind of, and it's surprising because everybody thinks, oh, puppies are cute and fluffy and whatever, but there's plenty of people out there that don't want to have anything to do with training puppies, and they're looking for a 1-year-old or older dog that they don't want to deal with it. So really kind of emphasizing that there's nothing wrong with answers to any of those questions. It's more just they need to be honest with themselves to find the best fit, because otherwise they're going to end up in, a rehoming or a shelter situation, or probably even worse than that, just being ignored in the life that they're in. So there's a lot of judgment that surrounds kind of if somebody has to rehome a dog. But I think sometimes if it's not because of some drastic situation, if it's literally just because you and the dog are not a good fit together, people like to judge about that. And, I think it's a bold move to make and a bold thing to do for the health of the dog. Like there's nothing wrong with saying that we're not a good pair, and I think this dog would be better suited in different hands. So dogs live in the moment. They adjust quickly. I mean, if they were in a new home, they're going to start to adjust within a couple of weeks. And if they saw you again, they're going to be like, hey, look, I know you. You're my friend too. But they're not going to, much to our dismay, they're not going to mourn us for life if they end up in a new situation. They get over it and move on, especially if they're getting much more, mental stimulation and kind of activity that way, or a better type of mental stimulation. For example, that cattle dog now being around horses versus just being around somebody trying to exercise them in the backyard or something like that. So I don't think that dog misses her old family, but I think she'd be plenty happy to let them pet her and play with her if she saw them. So just sort of, I guess, honesty with yourself is going to get you a lot further than anything else.
Cool. What about those things that like you like go in a circle, it's like on a stick and they like chase it?
Tetherball?
No. We should play that sometime. No, it's like for high prey drive dogs. And you like, it's like a
Like a-
fishing pole, but there's like something at the end of it, and they just like constantly circle you and chase it. And then eventually they get it and you give it to them and they feel amazing.
I just use a fishing pole.
There's a name.
There's actual,
Yeah, like
there's
a dog
actual
got wing
thing.
on a string. Like,
Yeah, I just use a
I'm
wing on a
confused.
string. What?
Okay, well, I don't know what they're called, but it's a
I'm gonna
thing.
look at this up. I've just used a fishing pole, but there's actually a thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could.
Okay.
Anyway, I prey drive dog.
It sounds like walking a fine line between tapping into prey drive and tapping into OCD. They're just going around and around.
Right,
Poles.
right. So I'm like, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, squishy face. What?
Yep, that's it.
This
It's like
thing.
a fishing pole. Christina, can you see this?
No, I don't.
No.
Think
Oh, she
I'd have to. I
Okay.
could maybe share the screen.
Anyway, I don't know. I was just thinking about
It almost looks like a horse whip.
that. Yeah, except it's just like you're
Really
just like
long.
it's longer, so it's not like they're just like
It's-
going directly around you. But I was just
It's a fishing
Are you talking
pole.
about lure coursing?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a lure.
there. It is. Do you like my description?
Yeah, braided fleece lure cord.
There we go. So I thought of it because of the fulfillment topic, but
Like a sight hound type thing.
yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Like, or closer than a lure course?
I don't even know.
I don't know. It's how long is this thing? It's probably like 3 feet long. Not even.
No, it's got to be longer than that.
Oh no, that's not lure coursing.
It's got to be like.
Oh
3
yeah,
feet.
maybe it is 3 feet.
It's got to be like 3 feet. It looks just like if basically like a wing on a fishing pole, but someone made it into just a stick with a rope and a lure attached to the one end.
Yeah, it sounds like they're just trying to kind of simulate prey drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
that's how.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. for like puppy or I'm just talking from like Django's experience. Like that's what I used early on was to get him birdie, like wings and dead
Yeah.
birds on a fishing pole. And
Yeah.
it fulfills that like primal instinct that they have.
Mhm.
And Bree just corners and kills chipmunks. So
Yeah.
like that's what she does. Yeah. No. It's a way to simulate what they want and what they've been bred for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my question is just like, is it just amping them up or is it actually fulfilling their need?
Oh, I gotcha.
I think in a lot of those situations, it's kind of an on switch, off switch. If it's just taking the dog to the next level and they're not able to settle, but a lot of times you can like turn them on, and use that to train the off switch. So then they learn to stop and it goes away.
Yeah.
It's that whole like a dog that barks, teaching them to bark on command so that they learn to be quiet kind of a thing. Cause then you can reward the quiet when they stop. But yeah, if the dog's like lunging at you and you're getting bit or grabbed when you try to put the thing away because they can't like come
turn it
back to
off.
heel or be calm, then yeah, I would say that's more of a problem. But if you're using it as a let's turn on the drive, turn off the drive, that seems like it could be pretty effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. No, that's great.
I like it.
I dig it.
I dig it. Going back to those. What the hell was my next question? It was about the list of that's what it was. It was going to be about the adopt don't shop kind of movement, and I understand where they're coming from. They're like, hey, there's a bunch of dogs already out here. We should be, like you said, if you want a jogging companion, don't be looking for a puppy. Get a 1.5 year, 2-year-old dog, something that's physically developed enough to actually meet your needs now, not a 1.5 years from now. But as a vet, as a professional, like someone who obviously also does the breeding element of dogs, dive a little deeper into that and why exactly it's not like correct.
Yeah, so I've been battling this battle for many years going to vet school in Madison, which is a pretty shelter-happy community, I took a lot of flack as a student for having intact dogs, and would have classmates that had dogs that were purchased from a newspaper ad and stuck under a Christmas tree as a gift for a couple $100 that they were using as a jogging companion at 4 months old, as if this wasn't going to be a disaster in many ways, judging me for having intact dogs and asking me how I didn't just have puppies all the time. And I was like, well, it's not the Virgin Mary. Like, they actually need to be bred in order to conceive. Like, they're not just going to magically create puppies because they're not spayed. So we would go around and around. But the biggest thing is trying to understand the difference between a responsible breeder with health clearances and betterment of the breed and a direct intention in mind for that breed versus somebody who is either backyard breeding or doing it willy-nilly. And the backyard breeders are the ones that are going to end up with these dogs in the shelters, because once they're out the door, like, there's no contact anymore. Where, I mean, like, for example, for us, that's our number one thing when we send a dog home. If there's ever a problem, if it doesn't fit in the family, or there's a health issue, or whatever the reason, that the dog comes back to us, that it's not transferred to a third party or ends up in a shelter or sold or anything like that. So really kind of truly understanding that it's okay, like you're talking about, what do people want in a dog, and it is okay to say, I am looking for X, Y, and Z for characteristics, and this breed fits the bill, and I want to know what I can get. When people ask me about getting a puppy from us or something, the first thing I do is tell them that I suggest that they come visit our house, visit the kennel. You know, I have 3+ generations of related dogs and siblings, cousins, etc., depending on what generation you're in. And I said, you can get a really good feel for what you're going to get at various ages of dogs, and I can tell you what you're going to get in that pedigree, and I can tell you what to expect. And not to sound elitist or not to sound like, oh, you know, all knowing or whatever, but that's kind of the whole point of the pedigree research, is the predictability of it, and having that. And on the same side, there rarely goes a day where, with my well-bred, well-researched, health-cleared, etc. dogs that I own, that there's not a random little stray shelter pet in my house too. So I've gone down both routes, and we are a community lacking in a shelter situation. And so we sort of started that up because I was doing it out of pocket personally, with random strays and stuff in the county. And so we started a whole separate project, but I fought it in vet school about trying to blend the shelter community and the breeder communities. And I mean, for example, we had an American Kennel Club rep come do a lunch talk when I was in vet school, and it got like psychotically heated, of students just ripping her a new one because she was there to support purebred dogs, and how dare she. And it was really kind of an embarrassing and awful situation to be in. And you know, there's a lot of benefits to both sides. The shelters are never going to be empty, because unfortunately, no matter how much we try to educate, there's always going to be backyard breeders and situations like that. And on the other side, you know, there's nothing wrong with what responsible, you know, preservation type breeders are doing for specific breeds of dogs. Where it gets a little dicey is where the two start to blend. I'm sure you've seen a lot of like local news stuff, even in Wisconsin recently, of the whole like shipping dogs in from elsewhere just to fill shelters for the sake of getting them adopted is kind of nothing but disastrous. So that would be the only the hard and fast, no way, no how that I would give you, based on a lot of things, infectious diseases and things that are coming in that are transmissible to people, and obviously other dogs, wild canines, all kinds of fallout from this that people aren't expecting. And there's kind of a whole movement, some people refer to it as retail rescue, where dogs are shipped around the country. And I have a lot of clients that it's like everybody came from a rescue down south or somewhere in Tennessee or in Kentucky, and I was like, well, they were put on a truck and bussed up here, because, you know, everybody's got a reason, but there's a lot of question as to kind of like where those dogs are coming from and what the purpose is. So the best that I can give you in terms of advice is just get some in-depth education about where where they're coming from. If it's from a shelter, know the story behind the dog as best you can. And I would question it if it's a constant, they're riding a bus up from down south, because there's always local dogs that need help. They don't need to be shipped in from elsewhere. So if that's happening, then we wonder why that's happening. Are they shipping puppies up north because they can get higher adoption fees for a puppy than an adult dog, or vice versa? So really just making sure that you educate yourself for what you want. And I had a little rescue Cavalier King Charles Spaniel for a lot of years until he died last fall. And literally my last foster dog through the shelter left this morning. So there's constantly dogs around here that kind of they fit all the bills. So I can play both sides of the shelter versus responsible breeder. And I'm constantly trying to work to bring the two together. I recently was at a fundraiser for our shelter, and I had a man there, and I smiled and said nothing because he was there giving us money, but he was telling me how happy he was that there was a shelter and how horrible all of the breeders of the world are, and how horrible it is to do competitive things with our dogs and to expect them to do anything. And I just smiled and nodded because it wasn't worth the argument.
No.
But there's always going to be those people on the other side. When I started the shelter, I had breeder friends contacting me and asking me if I was against purebred dogs now. So I'm constantly trying to play the middleman and bring the two together,
Nice.
whether I have to do it with my fists up to bring them together, or if it would happen more nicely, but maybe someday.
Nice.
It's just like,
Cool.
huh.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
She's in all the things.
Yeah.
All the dog things. I don't know if I want to talk about it. I don't know if you want to talk about it. But when I was at the clinic and talking about, let's dive into the world of competitive dog, like the competitive dog athlete world. So obviously Sarah and I do what we do, but we're like, do it just because we're total nerds. You actually compete your dogs, and how everywhere you go, it's like everyone's like, oh, your husband's dogs, all that kind of nonsense. Can you describe that a little bit more? Maybe like that world of competitive dogs and just like maybe, I don't know, dumb old white guys. I'll say it. I'll be the one that says it. There was recently an article my buddy Pat Durkin wrote too about, is hunting too white? And it's like, and I love it because I go on and so many white guys are like, that's a terrible title. There's nothing, like, why do you even bring it up? I'm like, what do you mean, why bring it up? Like, it's in the article, it talks about how an African-American man, his family is worried about him hunting because most of the people are white with guns out in the woods. It's a justifiable concern.
Oh, yeah.
But all the white guys are like, no, there's no racism. Like, okay, white guy. But no, you mentioned it when we talked about it earlier, and I want to dive a little deeper today if you're up for it.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually kind of a funny follow-up with that, but my best example is having a young dog out at a hunt test last year, and having this very tall and pretty young, probably I would estimate like late 30s, white man come up to me and say, that's a really beautiful dog you got there. Does your husband hunt with him? And I looked at him and I said something to the effect of, he's not allowed to touch these dogs without my permission or something, because we have short hairs and we have tollers, and we very much share the tollers, but he doesn't really want much to do with the short hairs. And this was my young male, very, very much my dog, short hair, that this guy asked about. And so this dog comes with me every day, everywhere. And yeah, he's never with my husband. And so when I was on a rant about that at the time, I said, he had this woman with him who's out there at the hunt test in her fake fur hooded jacket and her fake fur boots, and she all thinks she's dressed up, and they're out there with their dog, and she's freezing and it's 65 degrees and whatever. She's not really the outdoorsy type, but hey, she's there with them, so fine. well, I saw the same guy at the same hunt test this year, a year later, and I'm not a super confrontational person, and like I don't really want to talk to people I don't know, so I didn't go up to him. I kind of avoided him, but I saw the woman again, and this year she had on some camo neoprene muck boots, and the first thought I had was that she upgraded from last year. So she's slowly moving into this hunting world, and I was just sort of quietly entertained by it, like watching this unfold like year by year as they're learning this. And he was like such an offensive like dill hole last year, and then now he's like dragging his wife out there with him. And the other one is that, again, the short hairs are mine, and through our NAVDA membership, we have a family membership, but the dogs and whatnot are in my name, and whenever I get my publications through them, they come mailed to my husband instead of mailed to me. And so I am fairly entertained by that, and I like to make comments to all the people at the events about how I'm the one here, not him, but it's interesting that it always comes mailed to him. So yeah. We definitely we do have that problem, but my husband handles it well. He doesn't really care if I tell people to F off. That is my thing, not his. So we do a lot of it together, though. He's very much involved, just not so much on the short hair side. So yeah, but I don't know. We both grew up hunting. But I grew up on more the dog training side of it than he did. So I don't know. Long history there, I guess.
What do you all compete your dogs in? I want to jump back to that.
Most actively field events and confirmation type things, various field events, whether it be like retriever trials or club events or pointing trials, that sort of a thing, hunt tests. And I have one dog right now trained in agility because my other one retired. We've done obedience and rally competitions over the year. I don't do so much of it anymore just because I don't have time for like rally type stuff because we've been doing more advanced field work lately. And I've done everything from barn hunt to lure coursing to trying all kinds of different little events. What I really want to do this year, and I don't know if I'm motivated, I could just make my husband do it because he could just go out and run like 10 miles, no problem, but is a canine race with one of my short hairs, which totally comes over from mushing, where they're in an X-back harness and they're on a hip belt, but it's basically a trail run anywhere from like a 5K upwards, but it's a trail run with the dog and basically not leashed, like they're tied to you, and so you're so the sled and they're awesome. Pulling you.
I'm so excited for that.
But I think it'd be fun.
There's a 16-mile one, June 8th, June 9th, I forget. In Wisconsin, it's in Kenosha. Django's not. I'm listening to what you told me, so he's not. I obviously can't. I haven't even ordered. I haven't even ordered any of the things because he's not.
He's too young.
He's too young. But starting next, so after this hunting season, I can see him and I doing a lot of that in the off season. So he would crush it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It'd be a blast. I'm so fired up for that. That'd be, I'm excited. That
is another one.
What was that?
Back in the day, I heard that ski joring.
Yeah, the skijoring thing. That thing. So it's because you're actually on skis, right?
Yeah,
you're on
for sure.
Cross country skis, and your dog's attached to you, and it pulls you while you're skiing.
The best.
Right.
I hitched myself up to my aunt's 100-pound German Shepherd once and hit the garage door in a hurry when he stopped, and I didn't after. We did a nice 5-acre loop around their property, but we didn't have brakes because he had never done it before, and he stopped when he found her, and I didn't stop because of inertia.
See you later.
Yeah, he's flatted.
Boom.
Well, we're closing in on 2 hours here, so I definitely want to give us time to conclude because
Let's do like another 2 hours.
I would love to. We will do that easily because I do. So going off of this, Kristina and I have talked, and definitely with what you're doing, I would love to get you involved. But is being able to put out more content, be it blogs, writing, just Q&As that we do with people, because I think a lot of people do have questions about dogs, but they're not aware of it. They don't know where to turn to, like yourself, like me, with what we want to do with our dogs. So just being able to help answer questions and what Kristina and I are doing with like Chubby Wiener Fat Camp, and just kind of bringing more awareness to the world of health, fitness, and wellness when it comes to people and dogs. So what that looks like, training for yourself and your dog. But I want to be able to put out more of that. So yeah, but
I love it.
So concluding thoughts, I guess, for this, like anything, Sarah, you want to say before we leave, and then we'll do also like plugs for where you've learned a lot of your stuff or where people can reach you.
Oh yeah. I guess the biggest thing is just like understanding where your dog's at, not just like, are they loved or are they petted enough, or have you, given them enough treats for the day? For me, it's all about, have you fulfilled them for the day, and is their brain like at rest? Like, do you understand like what exactly, how are they feeling? And can you connect with that? So I think that's a huge thing that I'm learning about and I'm super interested in, and hopefully can teach more of that when I get more familiar with it. But understand the psychology end of it. And yeah, that's the love right there.
I love it. That's perfect.
That's loving your dog, not
people,
the pets.
Yeah, exactly. Loving your dog for like the instinct and the genetics.
Yeah, exactly what they're going through, how they're feeling in every single moment is far more better than treats and having them snuggle with you in your bed.
Where can people reach out to you if they have questions?
I would say just my Instagram right now is probably the best place. Sarah Jo Moore, I think.
Sounds right.
At Sarah Jo Moore.
It'll be in the show notes.
SarahJo Moore. You can private message me or follow me or whatevs.
Cool. Nice. Kristina, concluding thoughts?
Oh boy. I read an article recently that was talking about what you're saying with like contentedness of the dogs, and there was a trainer that was basically saying she doesn't walk her dogs, and I kind of had mixed feelings about it because I like to walk my dogs, but I was not reading into it that much based on what she was saying, but I agree with you, and kind of helping them find their happy, and the number of times that I tell people that they're killing them with kindness and killing them with love when they equate food with love. And I will tell them, like, they don't need to get a treat. You could go for a walk, or you could spend time with them, or trying to explain to your average dog owning client that that cup of kibble could be used as a training treat and an interactive type reward. It doesn't have to be served buffet style in a bowl. I guess my only other like random veterinary plug is my nail trim plug. So, keeping toenails nice and short is going to help everybody, but otherwise, yeah.
Maybe you can do that for me.
Field trip.
Okay, see you next week.
Yep.
Yeah, training the way that you're training, she should be doing it on her own by now on a filing board or something. So.
Yep.
Sit there. I got it.
Oh, and that's a thing. I need to learn how to do that.
What?
The filing board, or like the sandpaper. That's a thing,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah, people will train that behavior.
Oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. That's going to be on the next podcast. We've got.
Stay tuned.
I've got Washera County Animal Shelter on here. I tried to win you some money with Django, but there were people with way more votes than Django had. But so I've got that up on the screen. Washera County Animal Shelter assists lost and stray animals in Washera County, Wisconsin. So how big is Washera County? So that's Hancock and
20,000 people.
Oh, snap. Nice. So you do not have a physical location, but hope to open a facility in late 2019. What does that look like right now?
We are in the middle of fundraising. We are almost a third of the way there. We have a building that we know where we're going, but it needs some upkeep and renovation work, and going through the process of licensing and commercial codes and whatnot, getting everything done correctly so that we're ready to be a standalone functioning place. So right now the animals are the cats generally are kept at the clinic in a little setup that we have for them, and then the dogs will come through and end up in private foster care which oftentimes is my house. But yeah, we don't need a lot of things donated as much as we need money donated, which has been a little bit hard because people really want to donate things. So we don't need much for things right now.
We don't
just
need no
kinda
squeaky
saving up
toys.
Don't need what?
We don't need those squeaky toys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. It's all started in the last probably 6 or 7 months or so. So it's come a long way. The community has been great with it. We've had a few of our own fundraising events, but people are just kind of doing their own thing and raising money for us. And it's like once a week, somebody will walk into the clinic and be like, "Here, we did this thing this weekend, and we're giving you guys money." So
cool.
Yeah, it's been great.
Very cool. Where can people follow you, reach out, that kind of thing?
Well, you probably have the link to the Canine Athlete Facebook page, the clinic Facebook page, and there's a link on the clinic website for office email that will get to me.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have all those on the show notes. Sweet. Cool.
Self-wash, dog wash.
Yeah.
I need one of those for Django. He's so filthy. Oh my God, all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to go look at your website when I get home.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you both for coming on.
Thanks for giving us this opportunity.
And Sarah, one of my biggest shelter supporters, who also has a dog from me, is also a huge Main Grain Bakery fan. So there you go.
Thank you. That's awesome. I love it.
And I don't mean Lane. It's somebody else.
Another person.
Another person, yes.
Oh, fun. Cool.
I
love it. Cool. All right. I think that'll end it. I'll end the episode.
All right. See you next time.
Yeah.
Sounds good.